friends. Welcome to incredibly useful exercises for the double bass, where we condition specific aspects of our performance in short, stolen moments. I'm Dennis Whitaker. Thank you for joining me in today's exploration of a musical gesture that, while very common in music, is one of the least conditioned by bassists. Today, we'll be talking about trills, which will develop clean, brilliant trills and a strong, measured left-hand action. I want to thank Joey Naeger for his generous support of this series. Joey has been my go-to luthier for over 5 years. He sculpted my fingerboards buzz-free on both my 1850 English orchestra bass and my solo bass, making them so easy to play, and his tone work on my basses keeps them sounding full, free, and beautiful. Many professional working bassists throughout Texas rely on Joey for fixing and maintaining their treasured instruments. The Joey Naeger prize-winning basses are also wonderful instruments. Please visit Joey's website listed below, and if you happen to be in the Houston area, pay him a visit to play his basses and to see how he can improve the playability and tone of your instrument. Odd Trills is an exercise designed to break down and organize a common musical gesture with surprisingly tricky technical demands. The great teacher Shinichi Suzuki placed brilliant trills as number 6 of his top 10 most important skills for teachers of the Suzuki method and string players, emphasizing that every note must be heard regardless of how fast you play the trill. In the last episode, we explored even trills. Both sets of trills have their own challenges and coordination issues, and they deserve their own focus and practice. Remember the rule about choosing between even and odd trills? If the last note in the trill is different than the first note, you'll use an even trill. If the last note of the trill is the same as the first note, you'll use an odd trill. This exercise is 2 minutes long, but since we'll be doing it in 2 different octaves, it'll be 4 minutes of total playing. It has a control rating of 5, mindfulness is 3, expression is 0 since we're working on non-expressive trills, power is 1, velocity is 2, and coordination in this one is a bit harder than the even trills. This is 5, and endurance is 0. I play this exercise with one goal in mind: for the development, control, and exercise of clear and even trills. I want my trills to be clear so that I can hear every note. I want them to be even so that they end exactly when I want them to. This means that I finish the trills exactly right and balanced, like a gymnast landing neatly after a series of flips. In the last episode, we discussed how the left hand moves in a trill to make the notes clear. As a reminder, the fingers turn on or off only. The forearm motion is responsible for lifting the fingers quickly off the fingerboard. This rotational forearm motion, or chompers, which I will explore in detail in a later video, is involved as much as possible in order to give velocity, power, and endurance to the dead fingers, and also to help reduce repetitive motion injuries. When I do this motion correctly, my arm looks like it's moving in a vibrato motion. We also learned how to make the notes even. Remember the difference between string players and piano players? On a piano, a single tap and release produces one note. But on a string instrument, as long as the bow is moving, a single tap and release produces 3 notes. So to finish the trills neatly, we practice coordinating changing the bow after a trill on both a tap and on a release. Odd trills, to me, feel way more uncoordinated than even trills. But with practice and attention to the bow changes, they'll feel natural. Remember that repetition is the heart of learning. This is how I do the odd trills exercise. Remember the pattern we learned for the even trills? Well, this one is slightly different. Notice how each beat starts on the lower note except for beat 2, which starts on the upper note. This means that on beat 3, the bow changes on a release, and on beat 1, it changes on a tap. Exactly the same as the even trills. Coming down, all beats start on the upper note except beat 2, which starts on the lower note. This sets up the descending line to change bows on a tap on beat 3 and a release on beat 1. If you can memorize this 4-beat pattern, the whole exercise becomes manageable. We're going to do trills in groups of 3, 5, and 7. Feel free to go further if you feel like exploring. So how I do it is, first I play it on as many of the 4 strings as my time allows. Plan on about 2 minutes per run. I maintain clear, strong, and even left hand articulations. And finally, I change notes with a forearm vibrato motion. So since I don't stop any exercise for any reason after I start playing, I review my recovery plan before I start. It's normal to feel unmusical when I start counting the notes in a trill. This is not an expressive exercise, so I'm okay with sounding technical for now. I want to avoid flyaway fingers, so I'll work to keep my fingers close to the string. And lastly, if I can't do the motion at a fast tempo, I'll slow the tempo down so that I can play all of the notes. I'll keep the tempo there for the next few days until the motion takes root in my body. Then I'll allow it to go faster. Okay, let's play. I'm going to play the lower octave first, recover for a few seconds, and then play it again in the upper octave. I don't use a metronome, and I play each variation progressively slower for clarity. Ready? 1, 2, ready, play. And that is the odd trill. Here's one more thought about using trills in your music. While playing Bach, unaccompanied Bach, or Baroque pieces in general, it's not really desirable to use the same speed of trill on every trilled note throughout the piece. In fact, it becomes quite boring. Feel free to play trilled notes with different speeds and different turns in a piece to help maintain your and the audience's interest. Remember the rule about how to choose between even and odd trills. If the last note in the trill is different than the first note, you'll use an even trill. If the last note is the same as the first note, you'll use an odd trill. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you find the Trill exercises as useful for your performance as it has been for mine. I would love to hear any success stories you have with this. Remember that I present these exercises in the way that I have used and benefited from them. I never intend to say that this is the only way to practice or to approach this concept. Feel free to adapt any of these ideas for your own conditioning or your teaching that best suits your playing style. Practice this and all other exercises in this series in short, stolen moments, or incorporate them into your regular conditioning routine. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and leave any comments, questions, ideas for technical explorations, or observations down below. I look forward to you joining me next time. Thank you, and be well, friends.